We're with Dr. Joye Pugh. Her website is linked up at coasttocoastam.com. It's Dr. Joye with an E, by the way, DrJoye.com. Several of her works, Eden, The Knowledge of Good and Evil. We'll be talking about that in a second. Colors of Joy and Antichrist, the clone image of Jesus Christ. We'll talk about the science of that later on in Coast to Coast as well. Joye, you didn't jump for joy when we talked about Zecharia Sitchin. You sound like you believe some of his theories, maybe not all of them.
Well, I have read, I guess, every book that he has ever published, and have an interest in what he has brought to the table, because I think when you do research, you have to look at all aspects of uncovering what is out there as far as ancient history is concerned. And I'm not one to discredit someone, but I feel like sometimes there are, I guess, fruit within each person's research, and I do believe that he has brought some good fruit to the table. My research actually goes a little bit deeper in the fact that where Sitchin really uses the fact of the alien being a being from outer space and coming here and becoming our gods. I go a little bit deeper into this, where I feel like that there may be a better understanding as to exactly what those beings were, and of course it takes on a better meaning if you look at what the biblical account states in regard to the sons of God coming against the daughters of man and producing what was called giants.
Sure.
And so, in looking at that, in one of the chapters in my book Eden, I talk about a particular epic called the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Mm-hmm.
In which Gilgamesh, of course, was a Sumerian, but he was also a giant. And because of this, he was the offspring, really, of a union between a fallen angel and the daughters of man. And when we look closely at this particular epic, we find that the intent was that Gilgamesh wanted to find the key to eternal life, in other words, eternal flesh, because as a fallen being, his spirit, if it was already in a fallen state, could not go anywhere. It would actually, when he died or his flesh died, that spirit would walk the earth because it did not have a habitation. And so he, in complete epic, was searching for what was called a rose-shaped object, and it would, if he could find it, it would supposedly allow his flesh to continue to live on, and that it would never die. Now, the gods that he called were the Anunnaki. And, of course, I feel like that was exactly Lucifer and the fallen angel. So that's where, really, Zecharia and I separate, our understanding of what was going on. But I do feel like that the fact that the Epic of Gilgamesh tells us a little bit more about the seven sages, that they came from the sea wearing fish skins. They were half man and half fish, and that they had somehow survived a terrible flood, and of course, then all of a sudden the Sumerians came about and had capabilities that really transcended where they should have been. In other words, there was a complete explosion of a civilization that you would think after some terrible catastrophe, how in the world could they have blossom
right.
and learn to do the types of things that they did. Someone had to be the teachers of man.
Do you think these descriptions of these ancients, Joye, was pretty accurate? I mean, do you really believe they were fish-type people?
The thing that really makes me believe that is that, we in our record, in our historic record, we have dinosaurs, and, those were some of the most crudest, big, ugly beings that, and just, I don't even like to really go too much to the museum and stand and look at one that they've, just re-put back together, because you're thinking, what if you had encountered that as a human? So I fully believe, because of just the look of the dinosaurs, that, what we have traditionally, I think, have been taught in school as mythology, I'm afraid that, from my research, what I've uncovered is that is really not fake, that those creatures were, in fact, real. And we are coming into the day right now with, biogenetics. And I, of course, in my book, Eden, I really go into the biogenetics and the splicing of genes and that kind of thing. We're already seeing the capability to mix, and match.
No credible doctor would do some of the things that we know are going on. Mixing humans and animals now.
Oh, yes. When you start talking about doing this, I mean, this is just like the movie The Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
I really, George, I really think that probably in some of these underground caverns and some of these islands that are way out somewhere, that somebody has already been playing this game of God.
Wouldn't you, just for a moment, just as a researcher, just as a broadcaster for me, wouldn't you like to be part of that and just look and sneak around and see what's going on there? Because they might have humans with hoofs. Who knows what they've got down there?
Well, and that's one thing in my research that I found that, when I began, talking about the word clone, I was talking about, cloning back before, the year 2000, and you just did not hear that being discussed. And I had gotten a hold of some information in regard to some of the underground kind of experiments that Hitler was involved with. And, there was already this play similar to what Gilgamesh was looking for. There was this understanding of trying to find a divine spark to be able to keep flesh alive indefinitely so that, one, you did not die, you could stay in the material body, and the fact that in doing that you could create the perfect or, perfected being. And that really was what the drive of the underground scientists were in regard to, Hitler and all the money that he was getting and pouring into that. Yes, I know that there was a Holocaust, and I do believe that they were looking for specific lineages to pull from to get certain things from. But, the cloning aspect has been going on a long, long time. And a lot of people, even that I deal with, in doing research with other people, I don't think, until I started explaining to them, the process of cloning is not a terribly difficult thing to do. In fact, it's a pretty easy thing to do. And it can actually be done in a high school laboratory as long as you've got accessibility to what you need. So it's not something that's really, really difficult. And I think that, in looking at how long, let's just say years ago when they took the first cancerous tumor out of a woman, they were able to put, that in a Petri dish, and as long as they fed it certain proteins, that tumor is still alive. So, in looking at some of the secret societies and some of the things that were being done underground with Hitler, you just can put two and two together that if they could already keep flesh alive indefinitely in a Petri dish, then you start mixing things together. The sky is the limit. And if there's no one sitting there going, well, there is a law that you don't need to be doing this, I hate to say it, they've probably got a lot of things like you were talking about with people with hoofs and people that are half this and half that, because I truly believe that the mythological characters that we see all over, historical record, and especially those that were in the Egyptian, days, and they're, walking around and printing it all over, their particular structures, they don't look like they had, to me it does not look like a mask. It does not look like they were wearing some strange headgear, because the head, if they had a human head, they couldn't have got it into the head that they got on their body. So I think that we're actually taking a science that probably existed back before the flood, and it came through the flood in some way, and I try to show how it did through the lineage of Ham that was Noah's son. But I do think that the Egyptians, if you look at the elongated craniums